Now, the 20th Communist Party Congress got underway in Beijing today, and it looks likely that hardline President Xi Jinping will be handed another 5-year term in the top job. That would make him the most powerful leader since Mao Zedong and would present the rest of the world, including Australia, with all the same aggressive threats and problems which have come out of Beijing for the past decade. Meanwhile, a Madrid-based human rights organisation, Safeguard Defenders, has published a report showing that the Chinese government has set up illegal and secret police stations in 54 countries around the world, including Sydney. While these so-called service centres have remained covert for close to a decade, Safeguard Defenders claim they're used by the Communist Party to crack down on Chinese dissidents and alleged criminals living abroad. Joining me now live from Rome in Italy is Laura Harth, the organisation's campaign director. Laura, thank you so much for your time. 54 such police stations operating in what kind of premises have you been able to determine?
Hi, Chris. Thanks for having me, and thanks for bringing attention to this issue. I have to say, we initially uncovered 54 stations in 30 countries. Now that number has been growing as local journalists, including in Australia, are researching, are digging into the issue. So more keep popping up. Now, we found these stations because we've been looking into one of the illegal methods that Beijing has increasingly been using, in particular since 2018, to crack down on dissent across the world, and so actively tracking, targeting dissidents, but also alleged criminals. So what we found is that these stations that are mainly run at the moment from 2 counties using this national doctrine to persuade to return through illegal methods. So this goes beyond any traditional legal international police cooperation, judicial cooperation. They're using these stations often based on existing United Front work associations, which we know have been obviously involved in harassing, in threatening dissidents, critics, including in Australia. And we found accounts in particular from the Chinese authorities, one, that through these methods, just in the past year, 230,000 individuals have been returned to China, persuaded to return through these illegal methods. Now, we believe those people are mainly from Southeast Asia, but we've also found express accounts, again, from the Chinese authorities, that these kind of stations, such as possibly the one in Sydney, have been used to track, target, and bring in alleged criminals, to talk to the authorities and to persuade them to return to China against their will. These accounts come from example from Spain, from Serbia, from Germany, so European countries. So obviously this is a very worrying trend. And I think when we heard Secretary General Xi Jinping say this morning that they want to harness the power of the overseas Chinese even more, this is what we fear. This will escalate even more unless it is stopped right now.
So they're actually operating these premises covertly, illegally, internationally illegally, but also having fronts such as Chinese restaurants and other false premises. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think we don't need, we've seen some instances, for example, in Italy or in Ireland, where, the police service stations really seem to take the form of at least an office, a premise, maybe even, with a sign outside saying this is a police service center. Now, after our reporting in Ireland, they removed this sign. But in most instances, we've seen it's more, we have to think about it as a network, as I said, based on existing United Front work organizations, which obviously we know are worrying in and by themselves. And so building this extra layer, this extra function on them, this express cooperation, direction from public security bureaus back in China. And so a network of individuals that are cooperating with these kind of operations.
What explanations have you or the international media now pursuing the story? What explanations are you getting from those in authority in China?
Well, the Chinese authorities, interestingly, one Spanish newspaper got a very interesting admission from a Shanghai official who was quite baffled by the fact that, people were not happy with these illegal operations and said, yes, of course, we are doing this. It's cumbersome to get people back, to force them back through legal means. So we don't see any issue in using these kind of illegal tactics. Now, that admission does not come as a surprise because in 2018, these kind of tactics, this methodology was written into law, in the National Supervision Law, a law that was then interpreted and includes methods that we have described in our report: involuntary returns, persuade to return, so use family members to get people back, threaten and harass people overseas to get them back, and even kidnappings. Now, all this is a legal interpretation by the National Commission of Supervision, the Central Commission for Disciplinary Inspection from the Chinese Communist Party. So wow. The admission is all there. It's already written into law. I think what is baffling us is that national authorities in democratic states have not been investigating this more. And I think we're especially worried when it comes to Australia, and I wish to launch an appeal again to the Australian Federal Police that they are still maintaining a memorandum of understanding, a cooperation agreement with this very body, national body, that is kind of in charge of overseeing, of implementing.
So hang on. Are you suggesting that either our Australian Federal Police or an Australian government in the past has signed off on this?
No, so I'm not suggesting they have signed off on these kind of police service stations or contact points. It is our understanding, we have no evidence that any national authorities were aware that these had been set up. So these are on top of illegal operations, these have been set up illegally under the radar. What I am suggesting is that this is additional evidence that the Australian Federal Police should take into account to review the agreement it has since December 2018 with the very national body in charge of implementing, overseeing these kind of operations.
Yeah, what are you hoping governments will do, like the Australian government, start investigating and maybe deporting every member of these so-called police stations that are set up around the world?
Well, I'm not in favor of deporting. Nobody should be deported to China because of the human rights situation there, which is one of the things obviously we're fighting and one of the reasons that China is employing these illegal techniques. However, we have had positive responses. We know investigations are now ongoing in the United States, in Germany, in Ireland, in Canada, in Spain, and possibly in other countries. So what we're asking Australian authorities is to investigate as well, to make it clear to any people that may be involved in these practices that this is illegal, that this will be prosecuted. And additionally, the United States in March of this year actually announced visa restrictions on any individuals or organizations involved in these kind of activities. So we call on all democratic Western nations to come together and impose coordinated restrictions and sanctions on those responsible for this growing transnational policing around the globe.
OK. Laura Harth, congratulations on what you've exposed and keep at it. Thank you for your time. Thank
you very much.
OK. Laura Harth, Safeguard Defenders. Big story. Can't believe it. And it apparently has been here since 2017 and no one in authority has known about it.